If you've ever felt like your brain is running 500 tabs at once, but no one else seems to notice, you're remembering the doctor's appointments, school deadlines, meal planning, emotional regulation for everyone. But who's keeping track of you? Welcome to the invisible mental load of ADHD motherhood, where the to do list never ends and the guilt keeps piling up. But what if we could change the script? Let's talk about it. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Nostalgic Neurodivergent, where we talk about ADHD, parenting, and life, all served up with a side of nerdy zennial energy. I'm Corey, and today we're peeling back the layers of something every ADHD mom carries but rarely talks about: the invisible mental load. So, if you've ever wondered why you feel exhausted even when you haven't done anything, if you're constantly juggling responsibilities but still feel like you're falling short, or if you've ever thought, why does it always fall on me? This episode is for you. So, in this episode, we'll cover what the invisible mental load actually is and why it can be worse for ADHD moms, the science behind cognitive overload and executive dysfunction, why traditional productivity advice doesn't work for us, and real ADHD friendly strategies to lighten your load. So, first, let's talk about that invisible mental load. The mental load isn't just the tasks that we do, it's the constant thinking about what needs to be done. And for ADHD moms, it's like running an entire operating system in the background 24/7. Let's start with that cognitive overload. ADHD brains often struggle with task switching, which makes managing multiple responsibilities even more exhausting. Add in the executive dysfunction, where we don't just remember the to do list, we have to remember the to do list. And we'll talk about hyperawareness and emotional labor, which we're keeping track of everyone's emotions, needs, and schedules, except sometimes not our own. Now, if you remember those old school Tamagotchis, they had the constant need to feed, clean, and check on them. That's our brain, but for an entire household. So, neurotypical moms, of course, you're going to feel the weight too. But for us ADHD moms, we're carrying those extra layers of guilt with executive function and RSD. Let me explain. We deal with time blindness, where we underestimate how long things actually take, which leads to a lot of last minute chaos. We deal with the forgetfulness and decision fatigue, so those constant micro decisions that drain us before the day even starts. Add in the perfectionism and masking, where we are trying to do it all while pretending we have it together, and top it off with rejection sensitive dysphoria and overcompensating because we constantly feel like we're failing and overextending ourselves to make up for that. Now, there is one time my daughter, she had her school picture day, and I sent her in a not so great looking picture day outfit. The shame spiral, intense. But here's the thing, she didn't really care or notice. And that moment taught me that I was holding myself to some pretty impossible standards. Now, let's talk about those traditional productivity things. Just make a to do list, use a planner, set a reminder. If any of that sounds familiar, no. Here's why it just doesn't work for ADHD moms. Linear systems versus ADHD brains. Not going to happen. We don't think in checklists. We think in webs. Yeah, the checklist might help us out with that nice little dopamine hit when we check off that box, but it's not going to do us a lot of good in the long run. We also have the myth of more discipline. For us, it's not just about trying harder, it's about structuring life to work for our brains. Add in overcomplicated systems with the more steps, the more we're going to avoid it. And we have that energy crash factor. So if we burn out by 2 o'clock, that afternoon productivity boost just isn't going to happen. So if you remember trying to install The Sims on an old computer, too many background programs running equals a total crash. That, my friends, is the ADHD mental load. So how do we lighten mental load? Because we can't erase it completely, but we can make it manageable. First off, let's talk about the good enough rule. Perfection isn't required. A 70% effort is still done. Next, we look at task batching and energy matching. So align your tasks with your energy levels, not negotiable here, and not with arbitrary schedules. Externalize your brain with whiteboard apps, sticky notes, whatever stops the mental to-do list from looping. Start recognizing your low energy defaults, so preset meals, easy routines, and permission to do less on the hard days. Finally, delegate and drop. Not everything is your job. If it doesn't have to be done by you, let it go. So laundry, one of those few tasks I do immediately. Otherwise, I forget about it. Dishes, I do them in small batches throughout the day so I'm not staring down a full sink at night. Managing my energy like this helps me keep the mental load from getting too overwhelming. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. The world pretty much expects moms to carry the mental load invisibly. And for ADHD moms, we are drowning in that. But we don't have to play by those rules anymore. Your worth isn't measured by how much you remember or manage. You're already doing enough. Be sure to grab my ADHD Parenting Hacks guide because it is packed with simple strategies to make mom life easier and reduce this mental load. Now, if you remember anything, remember this. You are not failing. The system is broken. The mental load is real, but you don't have to carry it alone. If this episode resonated with you, send it to a fellow ADHD mom who needs to hear this. And don't forget to grab your free ADHD Parenting Hacks guide. The link is in the show notes. Just like Cyndi Lauper saying, the Goonies are good enough, and so are you. I will talk to you again soon.